everything's starting to open in the state to bigger capacities.
They should give out vaccinations at the malls. I drove by a mall, I couldn't believe how many cards there were in there
Everything
on a
looks good.
weekend.
Candy.
We think we're on. Anybody?
Yep, we have a
Live.
from YouTube.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, and it's a little after 7. I'm here in Town Hall so that we can get the Channel 194 viewers in on the meeting. Normally, we would just have people that would be on the internet, so we are back to regular television and live stream. So I'm going to call the February 16th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. And our first item of the meeting is our call to order by person. Candace?
Candace Bouchard,
Todd Archulowski.
Melissa Bird,
Bob Geiger.
Candy Perez?
Sheila Sedlak.
Jack Flork. Steven Sedlak.
Linda Grappo,
Great, excellent. Please join us for a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
and justice for all.
Next item is the agenda review, and one of the things I want to note on the agenda is number 16 does not exist. There is no executive session. It must just be a mistake left on the agenda. Because,
That was an error.
yeah, because otherwise we'd have to have what the business was. So,
I did
Right,
talk
there is no
to
plan.
Terry about that.
yeah, so that's not there. Is there anything else on the agenda anybody wanted to talk about?
Yeah, Candy, item 13 also has no content.
Right, right.
Yeah, that was, yeah, that's an error.
Yeah, I
Okay.
worked with her on this.
Yep. Because I was talking to her about how sometimes on a special meeting agenda, we have discussion possible action listed after an executive session, and sometimes on other items here and there. So I think we just had a little confusion going on with a couple things.
I'll follow up with her. She's still a little new at it, but I'll follow up with
Yeah.
her and make sure we
Yeah.
clarify that. Okay.
That's okay. It's not a problem, I just want to straighten them out. All right.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. Any other eagle eyes out there? Okay, if not, we'll move on to approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. I may have a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting on February 1st.
So moved.
Thank you, Candace. Second, please. Thank you, Linda. Any corrections, additions? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor? That would be a unanimous. Thank you. The next one is our special meeting of February 9th. May I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Jack. Is there a second? Thank you, Todd. Any additions, deletions, or anything for Sheila? If not, all in favor? And that's unanimous. This is the first of our citizens' comments. I am sitting right here by the phone at 860-738-6958, if anybody would like to call in. We know at the last minute meeting, somebody called in, and Bob was able to go up and take a look at the snow plowing on that, so maybe there's somebody else out there. We also have citizens' comments at the bottom of the meeting as well. Again, 860-738-6958. 738-6958. Okay, so now we'll move to the town manager's report. Bob is here by phone, everybody. You won't see him right now, but he is here by phone. So go ahead, Bob.
So let me start with February the 1st through the 5th. Let me start that Monday. I met with the police chief regarding impending storm, and the parking issues that we were fearful of having on Main Street. I also met with our public works director, Jim Rollins. We knew that the coming week was going to be problematic with the snow and possible ice. So the Main Street businesses are always concerned. They never want to see a parking ban, which I understand. So we work with them to postpone as much as possible of it as late as possible so they can get their customers in and out. We also had a Zoom meeting that week regarding the new town manager position and candidate. Those were the formal meetings. I've been meeting every day with our new social services coordinator, Katie Bale, who's doing a fabulous job. But as I feared, the more we work on it, the more issues come up, which is probably a good thing. And she's doing a great job. She's very experienced, doing an excellent job. Tuesday, I met with a couple of taxpayers from Winchester who came down. We actually had an in-person meeting. It was just too complicated to Zoom. We did it in one of the conference rooms and spaced. Again, as you may have read in the paper, there are issues with ECAD and their expansion and the issues we've been having in terms of permitting and neighbor issues. The neighbors in that area aren't particularly happy. There's been a couple of newspaper articles in that regard. So they continue to expand, and not everyone's happy about that in that area. That was really a couple-hour meeting that day. Any other formal meetings where I did have a couple budget meetings that day. As you know, we're in the budgeting process. We're really almost complete. Bruce has been doing all the hard work and compiling everything. I've been slowly beating up each department or manager of why he needs a tax or a revenue increase. I think we pretty much got everything under control, and we're starting to wrap up the first stage of the formalities, so we'll have that done on time. But every day requires a little tweaking as we go forward right now. Let's see, we met, again, we had more snowplow issues. I keep trying to remind residents we do have 81 miles of roads, and we try to, I think they try to do the best job they can, but occasionally we miss a corner or don't make something as wide as people would like to see it, and sometimes we go back 2 and 3 times with some of these last snow issues we've had. I'll talk more about the ice issues. The snow's an easy one. The ice is the tough one. We've had a couple rounds of senior apartment and resident complaints, which we rarely have, but those required a little investigation, and there's more to be said on that. I had problems on Thursday and wrapped up on Friday. Rarely do we have problems with the residents themselves. It's usually either a friend or a relative who isn't familiar with the rules, and that's required some response on our part, both from the town, from the police, and our social services director. Also on Wednesday, Linda Grappo brought to my attention an issue we've had with resident and license plates, people who apparently are residing in our town with out-of-state plates. That's been a recent issue which we happen to coordinate with Linda in terms of accelerating. We have 2 new assessors, a part-time and a full-time. One of them is very experienced on the license plate issues. We try not to give people a hard time that are here visiting, or maybe they're staying for a few weeks visiting relatives. But if it's apparent that they are residing here, then we take action, because the license plate issues, I mean, that's part of our taxation issue. So if people reside here, the taxes for their license plate registrations come to the town, and if they're not registered properly, we don't receive the proper taxation. So that's an ongoing issue, and we're developing a process to improve that situation. I think everyone will be happy when we're all done with this. So the new tax assessors we have are vigilant, experienced, and I'm really pleased to see the work that's coming out of their office right now. Then on Thursday, I met with the Public Works Director and the engineer regarding the Sue Grossman trail extension in terms of extending the time frame, which we were able to do that, and also reviewing the new engineering reports as we changed engineers on that project. As you all may have heard and know, it's pretty complex, and I think we're making progress on that, but it's required a lot of work on the part, particularly of our engineer, who's done a terrific job on that. I also met with the police chief regarding the senior apartment issues that we had the day before, talked about how we're going to proceed with that, and also set up a policy to make sure those kind of issues don't happen in the future. Met with our social services director and our coordinator, social services coordinator, regarding, we have one resident there that needs some assistance, which was at the base of the problem. So we were dealing with the symptoms, so we're trying to get to the real problem rather than just the symptoms, and I think we've made pretty good progress. Friday, again, I met with the public works director. I'm usually over there every day. I meet with the police and usually go over and talk to Jimmy Rollins at Public Works. We're having, talking about water and sewer updates. We've had a couple of residents that have had water that hasn't been as clear as it should be, and usually the issue isn't coming from our water plants, usually coming from the pipes and the systems that distribute the water. So we've been working on updates and plans, trying to figure out how to improve those processes. There's a lot of flushing that goes on. We've got several automatic flushing devices throughout the town, and in some areas we don't have those, and those require manual flushing during this time of year. When we flush, we usually run it out in the street and let it go down the storm drains. Once the temperature gets below freezing, you really can't do that without creating road problems. So the guys are pretty good on developing plans to make that work effectively. But we have had a couple of complaints just recently about sediment in the water, so I think our guys are working on that this week, and we'll be talking to those particular residents to make sure we get to the base of the problem. Let me go on to this week, February 8th through the 12th. I again meet with the chief regarding weekend updates, because things occur on the weekend, primarily minor issues, but we try to follow up and find out what happened to make sure it doesn't happen again and record it properly. I also met with our public works director regarding this last storm we've had this week in preparations. Now you may have read in the newspapers or seen on the television, there's been a shortage in salt, which is a serious problem when you've got ice on the roads. So matter of fact, today we even lent a little salt that we felt we could spare to the town of Litchfield. They were almost completely out. So the towns in the area, we've been coordinating our supplies to make sure we've all got salt where it's necessary, because of the serious icing conditions. You run into a problem with rain. Rain is probably a bigger problem for our salt, because you could put, I noticed this morning when I left the house, it was pouring down rain. And as much as you put salt on the road, it'll wash right off in heavy rain. So right when the temperature is right around freezing, it's problematic. Do you put it on? Do you wait? Do you mix it with the sand? Sand itself will just refreeze and cause other issues. But salt has been a serious problem. I want to compliment Ken Fracassa. We went to him this week. We found some salt supplies down along the coast. We needed a very large truck to get it, because they won't deliver. And we paid him, but just a very inexpensive rate. He volunteered to go down there and have his guys stand in line and wait for a few hours in order to get loaded and bring us another load in today. But there's been some supply interruptions coming in. Most of our salt comes from Egypt, comes into the East Coast, and is distributed on 3 locations. I do not know why that one and sometimes the second of the 3 locations had supply problems from the ships and unloading. Whatever it was, it caused disruption all over the East Coast the week before this ice storm. So we've got salt now. Don't have a lot of it. We've got enough to get us through until the problem is finally resolved. And I also we had some landfill issues regarding one also, some of these strange problems that come up. Debbie Angel does a wonderful job at our recycling center, and Don Stein, who happens to be the residing chairman of our region of the state, happens to be right there in Park Hempstead. So he was on the phone discussing what the issues were, and Angel was trying to figure out how to dispose of excess Christmas decorations that came back into the landfill. It was all good intentions. I think the Scouts had put together a program to decorate graves of veterans. It's a combination of beautiful wreaths made out of metal and ribbons and some tree trimmings. Well, they took a lot of time to put them all together, but they just came to the dump when there was time to clean them up, and we could fill a dumpster, but you couldn't put it in the metal, you couldn't put it in the regular trash. Someone had to take it all apart. So Debbie kind of explained to us all how we have to figure out how to do kind of a beginning to end when we start doing a significant amount of Christmas decoration of mixed materials. I never would have thought of that myself either. And then Don Stein, we've been discussing, and Candy will talk about it maybe, or I will a little more, about what the entire state's trying to do to deal with our impending trash issue for the next several years. We're running out of ways to dispose of this, and our existing equipment is breaking down, and it's going to be a multi-million dollar, as in $300 to $500 million to replace all this stuff. We do not have a good solution, so there's going to be a lot of conversation going on in the next 2 to 3 years on how to address this. In the meantime, when this stuff we finally run out of alternatives, we're going to start shipping our trash out of state. That's not a good solution, but that's just a temporary one. So we don't have a good solution. There's going to be a lot of conversation between a lot of towns, a lot of experts on how we're going to address this, and of course we're going to require some funding from the state, which is going to require a lot of conversation. I also met with the Northwest Connecticut Housing Council, which is they're dealing on regional issues on how to provide housing, particularly for lower income. That's not an issue for us. We've got more than our share. Some towns have to step up and provide more affordable housing. We don't have that issue, but we're trying to help the other towns that do have that issue. Again, I met with Public Works Tuesday, as we knew this was ugly ice was coming our way. I think we had a Zoom meeting that day also regarding the new town manager. Wednesday, there were snow plowing issues again. We've got 13 routes, a lot of new guys, a lot of people making sure we have to train to make sure they know the routes, and then also dealing with the salt supply issue, which everyone's worked on all week long. Also had a library meeting regarding a new lighting project and potential state funding. There are state grants for libraries, which we receive some. Our library really does a good job for our town on a very minimal budget. We seem to be pretty good at finding funding for them, and they do most of the work themselves. Thursday, they had the Northwest COG meeting. It usually takes a couple hours. We're still doing that by Zoom. We all miss the in-person meetings. The in-person meetings seem to be a little more functional. The interaction is easier and more complete. Again, I met with Public Works. We've been doing our long-range planning on planned road construction, so we're putting together all the optionality over the next 3 years. We actually try to do 5 years. After you get to year 3, then you start just kind of dreaming. But we're really trying to do a hardcore plan for the next 3 years. We will be meeting with all the selectmen to help fine-tune that. So we're not finalizing anything. We're just making sure we have all the options available. And then also there was a Zoom meeting on the Siding Council, which met on Thursday. As you all know, we've had a company that wants to put a solar farm in, and their last application was rejected. So they were just re-meeting again on Thursday for the reapplication. I don't know the outcome of that yet, but it appeared that they had a presentation which seemed to be accepted by the Siding Council, and that will be, even though the town has had little authority, because the Siding Council actually maintains most of the authority on that. We've already spent significant legal counsel funds in order to make sure everything is being done properly, but the town will benefit significantly financially from this kind of project. We're anticipating up to $40,000 a year for several years, so we still have to fine-tune that yet, but the town, even though we didn't get a big say on this, it was kind of jammed down our throat by the state. We should be able to benefit from it with minimal damage to anything in the community in terms of inland wetlands, planning and zoning, visibility. I don't think, even though people are usually alarmed by something like this, and I certainly was, I think it appears to be a pretty good solution on what's coming out of this. I think the subcommittee meets Thursday. I have a finance meeting here in my own notes. I believe that's what I think there was a Zoom meeting on that. And Friday we had our finalization of our police contract, which has been underway for negotiation for at least a year now. And I think I will be presenting something to you all here at the next meeting for you all to look at and hopefully approve. So we're well underway for that, but I need some. There we will have an executive session and discussion for your input and approval, hopefully. That's it. Questions, comments?
I have a question on something you didn't talk about, but was in the monthly reports.
Which one was that?
It was in police overtime. I was just curious, in the overtime, he has it out in categories, and two of the categories were for dispatch coverage and LED coverage. And I was just wondering why since we moved to LCD, do we have overtime in the police for that?
There shouldn't have been much in there. I think with LCD, I don't know if you read in the paper, they had a COVID problem as well with some coverage, and they also had a particular resident, not our town, but one of the other towns that was arrested for over 3,000 calls into LCD, which did choking them down. So there was a temporary issue there. I don't know how many hours of coverage we put on that because I haven't got that. I'm looking at this report. I don't see it in here right now, but that related to a special problem they had. And we probably didn't have to do all of that, but we were being overly cautious in our conversations with them. So I hope we won't see. I hope we won't see that again. But I will get more clarification on that.
I was just curious about it because one of the reasons we went to LCD was to, try to also get better service, but keep our costs the same. But if we're paying LCD and paying police overtime and paying two people to sit there, I'm just kind of curious where that's all going to come out.
You'll see a change in that. We've had meetings on that this weekend with LCD in our own police unit down there. So I don't anticipate seeing any of that in the future.
Bruce?
But I'll get more detail on that for you.
Bruce has his hand up. Bruce?
Looking at the page where the chief has described overtime, the LCD coverage goes back to July. There hasn't been any LCD coverage in the last 6 months. There was a small amount of dispatch coverage in January. That may have been due to illness by one of the dispatchers.
Right.
Well, we had, during the COVID thing here just 2 weeks ago, we had to do it was just kind of a transitionary coverage backup for some units we had because they told us they were going to have trouble. It didn't last long, so I don't know how much was in there for that.
Okay.
But I think we should be finished with that completely. But we can talk about that when I get you the rest of the detail related to the contract. You'll see that.
Linda?
Bob, with
Yes.
regard to the senior apartment, was that the Winchester Housing Authority or was it the private
No, that was not.
facilities?
That was
Was
not.
the
That was
private facilities?
well, that was one of the private facilities.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Trying to watch all your little boxes. Okay, seeing that, we'll move to Bruce with the Finance Director's report.
Okay. Can you hear me all right? Good.
I can.
In your packet was the general fund operating results, budget versus actual report through January 31st, which represents 58% of the fiscal year. Some highlights from that report. Property tax collections were at $22.2 million, very similar to the last year's number at this time. It represents 93% of the budget. We are grateful to all the taxpayers for their timely payment under what is certainly difficult circumstances. Total revenues for the fund came in at 80% of budget through January 31, and pretty similar to where we were last year at this time. two significant receipts of municipal aid from the state. The first was Town Aid Road for $150,000, as we expected. And the second was the educational cost sharing grant installment number 2 for $1.9 million. And then again arrived as expected. Final installment, 50% installment should occur in April. Total expenditures in the general fund through 7 months, 18.4 million, or 54% of the budget. Last year at this time, we were also at 54% of the budget. Cash balance at January 31 was 16.8 million. That's up significantly from December 31 because January is the collection month for the second installment on real estate taxes. 7.6 million of that was invested during the month. So those are the, I think, significant points I wanted to make. We are required every year to file our annual report and audit with the EMA filing system for municipal borrowers, and that's due by February 28th, and we filed that last week, so our filings are up to date, and that's in preparation for whatever borrowing opportunities we may pursue later in the year. Happy to take any questions.
Anyone with questions? Steve?
Bruce, I know the budget for this, for the next year is coming together right now. I was interested to read in the newspaper last Thursday of the governor's proposed budget for next year. And he's proposing to direct $100 million in additional assistance to 25 distressed municipalities using $50 million in federal funding and $50 million in state bonding. The payments include nearly $9.8 million to Waterbury, $3.1 million to Torrington, and $965,253 to Winchester. I guess my question is, are we continuing as a distressed community? That's our status, is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
We're considered stressed mostly because of our median household income and our grand list, equalized grand list. So it's not related to our fund balance. It's related really to the economic abilities of the town.
Steve, was your question? Is your question, are we going to get that money or not? Is that your question?
Well, it's just the governor's proposed budget at this point, but are we getting funds this year, and how does that compare to what the governor proposes?
So in all of the major municipal aid categories, we include in the general fund budget each year. But the governor's budget has kept those levels the same. So everything, including ECS, Town Aid Road, some of the other major things, Pequot grant, that's not a lot, LoSIP, it's all the same. Everything is being funded in the governor's budget at the same level it was for this year that we are in. So, and it's actually the governor's proposing a 2-year budget, and those funding levels and all of those programs for Winchester remain the same as they are this year for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's really the heart of my question, the comparison of where we are and where we're going. Thanks.
All the same. Yep.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I know Bruce will stay here, but if you think of one, you could ask him later. Number 8 is correspondence. I know there were 2 letters that came in, or 2 things that we might want to mention. Todd, do you want to talk about the police one? I know there was one for one of the police officers, and then there's one from Sarah that references Katie Vale. You know what I'm talking about? I could do them, but I figure I'd spread the
wealth.
spread the wealth.
Todd there?
Yeah, I'm here.
He's just looking
Just,
for it.
you can talk about the Katie one first if you want, Bob, from Sarah.
Go ahead. I'm going through my papers. Candy, have you got it in front of you?
I will in a
I
second.
asked him to insert it.
Yeah, there was Sarah Loretti Toomey, who works with Greenwood's Referrals and talks about different, meets with a lot of different residents, was talking about the overdose rates that have been happening within the region. And one of the things that she mentioned is by having Katie Vale she's our social services coordinator. She has been instrumental in being able to help with some of those issues with that. And here it is. So there was an overdose in Winston, and it was reported, and she said she's had a few other positive outcomes with Katie Vale's assistance. So she wanted to thank the chief, the officers, and Katie for the collaboration and helping with the initiative of this person's family with the overdose. So we wanted to mention that because right now, Katie's position is new. The social service coordinator position is new and is a grant-funded position, and she has really made an impact right away. And then the second correspondence, Todd, you have that now?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
So for the last 2+ years, we have had an officer from the Winston Police Department on the statewide narcotics drug task force. I'm kind of torn on using their name because they are on an undercover task force. So I will just say that our officer was recognized for his teamwork, his mastery of skills on undercover investigations, and his quick work anticipating questions before they're answered, or before they're asked, and answering them. He's been an asset to the statewide drug task force and their efforts to rid our communities of illegal drug dealers, and he's a valuable part of the team. And that was written by the sergeant who is in charge of the statewide narcotics task force.
Okay, thank you. All right, if there's no one else or something I missed, we'll move on to boards and commissions. Steve?
Thanks, Candy. As you can see from the document in your package, we have 4 reappointments that we're going to do tonight. The first one is, I will move that we reappoint John Cooney to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire in October of 2025.
I thought we already did that one. Didn't we do that one a while ago?
I thought so because, Candy, you abstained, right?
Yes, I did. That's how I know.
That's how I know, too.
We've already reappointed him.
Okay, I guess, I remember we were waiting for him to respond to, our letter asking if he wanted to be reappointed, and I think you're right, so we won't do that one again.
Okay.
I'll move on to, a motion to, reappoint Joel's to the Board of Assessment Appeals, term to expire in October of 2023.
Second.
The only discussion I have on that is with the Board of Assessment Appeals. Todd, did you find out about moving people up to the full position instead of an alternate?
I did not. I was going to bring that up to Steve tonight on if he wanted to reach out to the alternate members or if he would like me to, because there are currently 1 permanent member and 2 alternate members of the Board of Assessment Appeals.
And so do we appoint the permanent?
I believe Joel is already a permanent one.
But do we appoint the people from alternate to the full board, to the permanent?
That was one of the questions I had for Steve.
And I don't know the
I believe
answer.
yeah, I believe you do, but so I'll check.
Right.
I'll check too.
Okay, I'll reach out to the members and see where we are with alternates and permanent members. I don't have that information right now,
Right,
but I think we should move forward with the reappointment.
okay, so if Joel's already a permanent member, that was my thing, if he was an alternate, I would reappoint with a, motion to appoint to the permanent member, but if he's already that one. So, all in favor of reappointing Joel? Unanimous? Thank you.
The next one is, a motion to reappoint Sean McGlynn as a member of the Recreation Board, term to expire April of 2027.
Is there a second? Thank you, Candace. Any discussion on that? Is Recreation also still looking for more people? I saw something on Facebook put out by the rec department. Yes? All right. How many members do they have?
It could be up to 15, I believe, and I think they're around 9 right now.
Okay. So all in favor of Sean? Unanimous, thank you.
And the final one, I will move to reappoint Jamie Duffy to the Recreation Board, term to expire April 1st, 2027.
Is there a second? Thank you, Melissa. Any other things with that one? Now, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you. Anything else, Steve?
That's it for now.
All right. So that will segue into number 10, unfinished business, which is protocols for boards and commissions,
Before we
including,
move on,
oh, sorry.
I just checked, Joel Stewart is an alternate, listed as an alternate member of the Board of Assessment Appeals.
Because they start pretty soon with their appeals in March, so we should have them appointed to their, if we're supposed to do it according to the charter. If it's not anywhere, then we do it. If it's by their bylaws or something, which they have in terms of who moves up, but there's 3 alternates and 3 permanent spots open, correct?
There are 3 members, 3 permanent, 3 alternate. Currently, we have 1 permanent and 2 alternates.
So we also need some people to fill in those positions as well.
Right, if we move both alternates up, we would need to fill the 3 alternate positions.
Right. And usually March is the Board of Assessment Appeals meeting times, if I remember correctly.
I believe their dates are almost set.
Yes. So our first
I'm
meeting,
looking as well.
so our first meeting in March, we need to make sure we have the people appointed.
Yep.
Anything else? Okay, so that, again, segues into the protocols for boards and commissions, and also using the application form, but also the posting of minutes, the state requirements for posting agendas and minutes within our boards and commissions. So I believe, Candace, you had wanted that on, so you want to start it all off?
Yes, I've been seeing that, perhaps, especially with the new chairmans that are coming on board and changes in the boards and commissions, a reminder should go out to all of them stating what our requirements, what the FOIA requirements are for agendas, 24 hours posting for an agenda before a meeting, December 31 for announcing your schedule for the next year. You can't have a meeting till 30 days after that. So if you have a first meeting, like a Board of Selectmen meeting on January 4th, you'd have to get December 4th would have to be when you would have to submit your schedule for the balance of the year. Also, a requirement is to have the voting requirements available within 48 hours, so that if anyone, say there was a vote on planning and zoning item, they have to be able, the public has to be able to access those within 48 hours. So the filing of those with the town clerk, and then they must be all posted on our website within 7 days. So the meeting tonight, the minutes of our meeting should be posted on the town website 7 days after our meeting. It also identifies what's a special meeting. So it's a nice table that, so I think we should send out a memo to all of the chairmen to remind them of the OAI requirements, to remind them of what's expected. And in addition to that, we obviously need to fill a lot of the vacancies in our boards and commissions. And I've also created a draft application form. Traditionally, what we've received are communications through the town manager of people who are interested in or have been targeted meetings to invite people to become new members of our boards and commissions. Well, the challenge we have after that is that we don't get all of the information initially required. You know, what party they're with, are they a registered voter? So there's a delay in some of the information gathering, and in order to present them for appointments. So this form would serve to guide a potential new member through the process. It also would tell them the process of once you've been appointed as a member by the Board of Selectmen, who would notify you, and that you also need to schedule an appointment with the town clerk to be sworn in before you can actually participate. So I think this draft form, you know, everyone can review it and advise their suggestions if they agree to go forward. I think it'll help expedite the appointment process.
Is this something that you think the board should approve, or do you think it's something that your small committee could just do?
I think the subcommittee should do it. I just want to make people aware that I think that's something. Also, you know, we'll have to work with the webmaster to you know, to find out what format can be put on our website and where it should be. I think it should be obviously the first item on our when you click on boards and commissions, so that you know where the form is. And that's probably something that should go in the meeting, in the memo to the chairmen, to advise them that we are going to have a new form available for those interested in becoming a member of their board and commission, and where to direct them to so they can apply.
So will the subcommittee, I don't know when you meet, if you meet, that you'll take care of this, or?
Yes, I would love to, you know, have a meeting with Steve and Linda and go over these details so that we can get this started.
I'm good if you do that. Everybody else?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, so on to item 11. Bob, would you like to introduce the Fire Chief, Jamie Legacy, who's here?
I would. I hope Jamie is out there, so I just wanted everyone to see a face and hear from our new fire chief. We said presentation. He's just really going to give us a brief little talk of who he is, basically what's going on. He's been with us for several years now as our paid fireman in the past, and he's selected by the group, by all our volunteers, and we're really pleased to have him. He's done a super job for us in the past, and I'm sure he'll continue to do so as our new fire chief. So, Jamie, are you there, please?
I'm here. Thank you, Bob. Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry that we're in separate rooms. It'd be much better if we were with one great big room, but soon. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the fire service for 34 years in the neighboring town of Pleasant Valley. I've lived in Barkhamsted most of my life. In Pleasant Valley, I went through the ranks. I did hold the office of chief for 5 years. I worked in the town of Winchester for just over 11 years, and as Bob said, I've been chief for 6 months of that. While I was a captain working as a paid firefighter, I worked closely with the previous fire chiefs doing budgeting, purchasing, personnel. So I'm used to doing all of that kind of stuff because before, when there wasn't a full-time paid chief, I pretty much did a lot of that work. So currently I'm a deputy fire marshal here in the town of Winchester. I'm the burn official, one of the burn officials. I'm on the safety committee for the town. I'm an instructor at the Litchfield County Regional Fire School. I've been there for 7 years. I'm on the Barkhamsted Fire District as a board member. I've been there for 11 years. So a little bit about me. We did hire the new paid firefighter to take my old position. We hired him starting in January. It's Matt Van Duzen. He lives in town. He's been a firefighter here for 6 years, and so far he's working out very well. So for fire calls in the calendar year of 2020, we responded to 607 emergency calls. 408, or 67%, are between the hours of 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. I found that was fairly interesting. Out of the 607 calls that we had, that 67% are in the 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Currently, our volunteers, we have 30 volunteer firefighters, 27 are interior or trained firefighters, 3 are exterior or somewhat newer members, 6 fire police, and 6 support service personnel. Since the beginning of 2021, we've lost 2 interior firefighters. One retired and moved out of state, and the other one moved to Farmington, just moved because of his job. Let me see. In the upcoming months, I will be proposing a plan to phase in a tax abatement to help retention of the volunteer firefighters. Currently, we have the reimbursement for volunteer firefighters or paper calls is put in the budget, which is proven to help the response, but we need to do more to retain our current volunteers and to encourage new volunteers. Talking about the pandemic, COVID has made it challenging for us over the past year, like everyone. For meetings and training, we're trying to stay on top of the training to meet all the OSHA standards, but we've had to cancel training throughout, certain times because, the rate of infection. So we stay on top with the recommendations from the state CDC. We use St. Francis Trinity Occupational Health to do our physicals. So when we have exposures, we contact them and they guide us through it. All of our personnel have been offered vaccination. Currently, approximately 65% have either been vaccinated or scheduled to receive the vaccination. So I think that's a really good number, and that gets us close to that 75 to 80%, at least for our own responders, and hoping as the vaccination rolls out that everyone else is going to get it as it's available. Currently, as you know, we received the Assistance of Firefighter grant for the regional radios, for the purchase of that equipment. The grant covers a large amount of the cost, but we're still going to need some additional funding this coming budget capital year to complete the purchases of additional equipment. We also just received another Assistance of Firefighter grant, a regional one, for COVID-19 supplies. This grant is to purchase disinfectant spray equipment to disinfect the apparatus in the buildings. The regional grant covers Winston Fire, Winchester Fire, Riverton Fire, and New Hartford Fire. It's about $32,000 all combined. Our portion is, I think, $615 for the Winston Fire Department. We're in the process of putting a truck committee together to start working on the replacement of the two engines. One is a 1984 engine 4, which is pretty much, we've taken it out of service, and our 1988 engine, which is another open cab, just like engine 4. Engine 1 has had significant frame rot, and a few years ago, we spent about $4,000 to prolong its life for a few years, but now we're getting to the point that it needs to be replaced. We have a lot of aging equipment that we need to start working on. We proposed a capital plan. Bruce and Bob have had it. I don't know if the selectmen have seen it, but we did the repairs a few years ago. We're in dire need to replace those two engines with one new one. So we're asking for you to help fund this in the upcoming capital. That's all I have. If there's any questions.
Yeah, I have a question, and you might not have the data there, but you said you had 30 volunteers, right?
Yep.
That are fire people.
Yes.
5 years ago, how many did you have?
I would have to really look and try to figure that out. I mean, maybe I could throw a number out there to say 50.
I guess I'm thinking of a time, I remember early in my selectman career, one time when they were ordering, the protective gear and
Turn
whatnot.
up here, yep.
I want to say at one time I heard the number 100.
There was, probably, depending on when you're talking. So the first round of turnout gear that they bought for the entire department was 2003. That was Morning Pride. And I think they purchased around 100 sets.
Right.
In 2013, 2014, we got capital funds, and it was $120,000. I want to say we purchased probably about 75 sets at that point.
Okay.
So as you know, we know that the volunteer fire service, is diminishing. The personnel is not the way it used to be, and we're trying to hold on to the members that we do have. I believe in retention, and then recruitment comes with that.
Right.
So, we retain our current volunteers, and, we support them. New volunteers will come, and, we advertise on Facebook and Twitter, and we have posters around town. We try to do Safety Day, which this past year we did. When they hand out candy on Halloween, we always have applications and try to encourage, new members. It's just, these times it's very difficult to get volunteers for not only the fire service, but ambulance, your boards, church groups. Everyone's looking for volunteers, and, it's very difficult.
Is it the requirements for certification that take so much time that make volunteers not want to be able to serve?
I think some of it is a time commitment, because to be a firefighter, interior firefighter, it's approximately 200 hours of training. It takes 4 months of 2 nights a week and every other weekend. I think that that's part of it, but I also think that people are so busy right now, with raising families. When I was a kid, my father worked and my mother stayed at home, and now, we need 2 incomes, to support a family. So I think that plays a big role. The younger people are more into electronics and computers, and, are not really enthusiastic about going out and dragging a hose down at 2 o'clock in the morning.
But the firefighters, if we don't have them, then there won't be anybody dragging any hoses. And then the other thing is, for all of us in the, our insurance ratings are impacted by the fire department's capabilities. If I remember correctly, we have insurance ratings and everything like that.
Yes,
So-
the ISO rating.
Yeah,
It
so-
goes by equipment response.
So are there steps within the fire department, besides with the young kids, that you don't have to be an interior firefighter? You could be fire police, you could help out on the, directing traffic, you could respond
Correct.
and help on the outside of the building, correct?
Correct. There's fire police, there's support services. So there's other avenues that people can join. That's why I gave you those numbers initially, with 6 fire police and 6 support service personnel, because we do have an array of different places that you could be.
Candace, you had your hand up.
I'm curious, I heard that in the past that Public Works personnel were also firefighters. Do we have any Public Works personnel that are currently part of our firefighter community?
Yes, actually, the new Public Works supervisor is the assistant chief. He started just over a week ago at Public Works. And Chris Rhines, who is the lieutenant on our tower, is also
Excellent.
Public Works. So it is a big help to have people from the fire service working for Public Works. In the middle of a snowstorm, obviously they can't stop plowing snow to come to a fire, but we've had people come in the past to come during the daytime when we need them. So it's a great asset that, they're there.
thought that was important. Thank you.
Any other questions for Jamie? I don't see any. So Jamie, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Welcome. If you don't mind, I'll hang out and stay.
You're more
It's
than welcome
public.
to have fun. All right, so item 12, the first one is I put on the agenda, joining the Coalition for Sustainable Materials Management. And Bob had talked about this a little while ago, about, the RDD1, the amount of trash that we have, the fact that, I don't know about you all, but I notice, like, every week when I'm looking at what I'm throwing out and how much things I'm throwing out, I just know that, I'm just like, you have two people, and we're throwing out so many things because the way things are packaged today. And RDD1 has done a great job with what they do, but that whole trash to energy plant is now at the end of its useful life, as Bob said. So what DEEP is trying to do is start to look at ways of, managing things into the future. And so they've started this Coalition for Sustainable Materials, which means that we don't have to really, there's nothing we have to pay at the moment. There's nothing that we have to, there's no meetings at the moment that we go to. But what it is just our commitment to help out with education, to look and explore different ways that we can contribute to making it sustainable in the future. Because right now, the amount of trash that is being produced, where do you put it? Where will it go? Right now we burn some of it gets recycled, but we know that the recyclable value dropped out a long time ago. So they're talking about things that would make the organics that we throw out in our trash, our eggshells or our scraps of meat, or, leftover, lettuces or whatever we throw out, things that maybe be able to be composted. Because if all that stuff goes into the trash bin, we get charged by the weight. Everybody that has their own private service now gets charged by the weight. The stickers at regional refuse are based on the costs, which are driven by the weight of the materials that we have. So anything that we can do to reduce the amount of waste and get it out of the stream of being weighed and having to be trucked somewhere in the future is going to help everybody's wallet, not to mention the environment. So this request came through, I sent it to you, you have it all in front of you. So we just, have to send a letter back saying that the town of Winchester would like to be part of the coalition, and that we will do our part in the future to try to help reduce waste, to be more efficient with how we throw things away, and also be part of the solution of, what we're gonna do, 5 years, 10 years from now when this big plant, doesn't work anymore. Did I get most of that, Bob?
You got it.
So with the board's approval, I would, send this letter in on behalf of all of us. And I know Debbie Angel, who's down at Regional Refuse, and she does a great job with it all, and she has a lot of worries about all this going forward, just in her own area, just the cost, because, she's a member of our community, and she wants to make sure that things are sustainable and also affordable for all of us, but she can see it all coming down the road. I know that she has brought up the fact about the things that are in our ordinances and restaurants, and the styrene, I think it is, packaging that we have, and trying to get that reduced because it's extra cost when she has to, throw all that away, and when things get brought down to her. So I know that she's talked about it for a while, which has brought it to our attention for this. And I think, like I remember when in grade school, people started talking about trash. I don't know about all of you that are my age or older, but I remember being in the backyard burning our trash every everybody in the backyard had a little fireplace, and it was one of your chores to go outside and burn it. And I remember burning plastic bags, and it didn't smell good, and I have no idea what we were burning and breathing in. But obviously, we're much better off now that we've had, you know, the rules that we have to follow. But we were taught all of that too, and I think we have to get back a little bit, you know, to that, and that's what I think this would do. So unless,
I see no downside, there's no cost. Yep.
and Linda, do you have anything with this? Because Linda's our liaison down there. Right? Oh, no,
Yeah,
actually,
no,
she's a
I
board
think
member now.
It's a worthwhile program, and we really need to get on board. You know, it's a collaborative. 74 towns already are involved. One of them being Barkhamsted. You know, Debbie Angel, at the RDD1, she's excited about you know, some forward-thinking help. You know, hopefully finding a solution that's sustainable to address the waste crisis. You know, Winston really needs to be a part of the coalition, not just to be a part of it, but I think we really need to take an active role, and I'm on board. Do we need a motion to
Yes.
go forward? I'll make that motion that we sign on to the coalition.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Steve. Are there any other questions on it or comments? Candace?
I'd like to see us take this further, like with the COG regarding the styrofoam. I mean, that's an ordinance we have that we haven't been enforcing. But I'd love to see the COG, I'd love to see the COG get together or with all the restaurants with the buying power of the region to buy paper products to replace the styrofoam. And as a group to purchase as one body, where the Chinese restaurants and all of these other takeout foods can actually use their purchasing power all together to buy paper products instead of styrofoam. This is ridiculous. And I think the best way to do that is also to bring that up at the COG and see if there's some way that the towns can get together with all their restaurant owners and use the buying power of the region to buy paper products. McDonald's has done it, and Dunkin' Donuts, you know, where restaurants are just dishing out styrofoam left and right. We have an ordinance, and we're not even putting that into effect.
Linda, you had your hand up?
Yeah, Candace, it's interesting that you say that. EDC is having their meeting this evening, and that's on the agenda. They do have a committee member looking into going green and getting supplies and getting different ways to bring it out to some of the local restaurants in town. So I'm anxious to see what follows up. But yeah, I think economic development is really excited about something like that as well.
I'd like to see them take it to the region and not just Winstead.
Oh,
Because
absolutely.
That's where the buying power could be.
Right.
Well,
Steve?
Bob, you were part of the COG meeting last week, and I know there was a presentation that was covered by the newspaper. Just quickly, I don't know what your expertise is, but can you tell us what a digester is?
yeah, we've actually, the COG, matter of fact, the Rotary Club last year had, there are two companies that have digesters in the New England area. One came and made a presentation. Don Stein and I have talked about that. One of the advantages we have, Don Stein is currently, you know, the lead member for our 21 towns in the COG, and he also oversees our region, you know, for this type of disposal. But digesters, the United States has maybe only, I don't know, less than 20 of these. These are huge investments. The country of Italy's got over 1,200 of them. But a lot of Europe has been working on digesters. It's requires separation of your trash. Anything that's biodegradable is separated and consumed by these biodigesters that assume 100% of the product that goes in comes out as a sustainable product and also generates energy. So it'll either come out as fertilizer or products that can be used in the community in some form or fashion. We've actually looked into trying to attract investors who would put a biodigester in our region. So the COG's been very involved with that for quite a while. So there is a lot of effort going on through all the COGs, and particularly ours, since Don's one of the leaders of it, to figure out what to do about the replacement of the old equipment. You know, we're not even sure that's the right thing to do. But the biggest problem with all of this stuff, biodigesters and other types of equipment, is separating the trash. And like right now, and Candy brought up, you know, it's a good idea. How do we separate some of our materials? I don't know. I've got 3 containers in my house now. You know, it's getting the public to separate it. So most of the biodigester companies right now are working with major restaurants or food producers because it's easier to deal with their waste product than to try to deal with homeowners. But a digester is just it's a great way to go, but it requires almost a national effort. It requires federal and state funding because it's huge investments, but private companies are making money doing this, and I assume we'll see this in the future because we're just out of places to put trash. So it's being worked on. And I will continue to push it with the COG, but we're all singing from the same hymnal here, boy. The COG, everyone is in agreement. We need to fix this problem, whether it's biodigesters, more separation, newer technology, trying to get restaurants to do the right thing, or homeowners. I came out of the packaging industry. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I came from an industry, we wanted you to, everything you bought from it, we wanted it wrapped 3 times before you took it apart or got it out of the box. That's one of the other issues. I mean, there's industries associated with keeping the existing process going.
Well, and we're all ordering everything online now. Everything's overpackaged.
Oh, absolutely. And packaging's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so there's jobs at stake. There's all kinds of issues.
So this is just a small step that we can take to try to help out, and CCM's involved, everybody in the state's involved, so this will be our small step into it. So
but it's creating the awareness. Yeah.
Right. So we have a motion. Any other questions? If not, all in favor? Unanimous, I think, Todd, right?
I'm abstaining.
Abstaining? Okay. Okay. I'll ask you later. All right. So the next one is refunds as recommended by the Collector of Revenue. Bob?
Yeah, as usual here, this is kind of a short one tonight. We have the Collector of Revenue, Hillary, has recommended the refunds described in the attachment you have in front of you there. They're for refunds. There are 2 motor vehicle and 2 real estate. The combination is $1,191. So I recommend that we proceed as she has recommended, and to approve these 4 refunds.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Who's the second? Melissa, thank you. Any questions? All in favor? Thank you. Next up is any citizens' comments, 860-738-6958. 738-6958. 738-6958. Okay, under 15, Selectmen's comments and reports. Bruce, could you send out the calendar, the revised calendar for the budget? You know, I had added in those 2 things. One, the February date is already past us, but the Board of Ed date, so that we can get it out to people. And we'll have that for everybody for the next meeting, so we know what the budget dates are. Thank you. Okay, other comments, reports from Selectmen? Jack?
Bob, I want to compliment Katie Vale on her social service coordinator summary report, the one-page report that she did. I would just ask for two things when she does these. I don't know if she's going to be doing them on a monthly basis or not, but two things. The first, what is the date range of this summary? When did this all take place? I know she's only been on for a while, but a date range.
Right.
And certainly, just as we receive reports from other department heads, she certainly should sign this and put her name on it. And as I said, it came in, just said Social Services Coordinators Report. Put her name on it and let us know the date range in which this report is coming. But it was a very perceptive report. It was nice to see the kind of work that she's been doing. And I know we've commented earlier about the requirement for this kind of a position. And as Candy said, this is a funded position. We have not put tax money into this. It's coming from a grant, but it's certainly showing its value. So I do want to compliment her on that and have those two changes made for her next report.
Okay.
Do you know if she's planning on doing this on a monthly basis or?
Well, that was,
I asked her.
that was,
Yeah, we
That was an assessment.
that was my request of her for two reasons. One, because of the grant funding, I needed to bring something back to the committee, because one of the things in getting the grant is that you have to give periodic reports to it. So that was the initial intent of that, and then I gave it to you so that you all would know what she was doing with it. So in the future, I figure it would be quarterly for her, because that's about when we would report for the grant as well. I mean, it can be whatever you all decide, but she is part-time, and she is out there doing a lot of meetings and stuff, so I think quarterly would be pretty good for her.
Yeah, I'm fine with the quarterly report. I just wanted to know the range on this. So.
Yeah, we could get, she's busy every minute. Boy, she doesn't waste any time.
Yeah, that was from when she started till when she wrote it, so.
Right.
Anybody else? Melissa?
Hi, I just wanted to update everyone on the Recreation Board. They have completed their work on the ordinance changes, and those have been forwarded to Kevin Nelligan. So as soon as we receive them back, I'll forward the original ordinances and the changes to everyone here, so maybe we could all peruse them before the next meeting and talk about them, just so that everything is ready for them before the season begins. But that's kind of where we are with that, if anyone was on the edge of their seats wondering.
Melissa, are those
Yes.
ordinance changes going to require publication in all of the standard way of ordinance changes, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we do have to get that done in time.
Yeah, that's why, as soon as I get it back from Kevin, I'll send it to you just so you can see it in advance. They're very, I mean, it's not, there's not a huge amount to go through. So it should be pretty quick, I would think. And I don't think there'll be that many changes, maybe just a couple wording
Well,
issues.
the process is at least 3 meetings, so we'll have to have them on the next meeting, and then that way they'll be done the end of April.
Yes.
Because the beach season, everything's gonna open soon, and if nothing changes, it'll be the same thing as last year with all the issues everybody had to deal with. I
And
predict.
then you have to communicate the changes,
Right.
'cause, or else it'll just happen again. They don't know
Yes.
the ordinance changed.
I think one of them isn't one of them just to give the rec department and the police department the ability to fine for the parking? Isn't that one of them?
Yes, I think it's really just to word it. It was more so that the police department can actually support the lifeguards up there and the rec department in general with some of the parking procedural things that are going on up there. So it's really just Tanya's been meeting with the police chief to make sure that they've worded it the way that the police department needed it worded so that they can move forward.
But with the changes that we made in the last, I think it was last vote, all we have to do is put them on the website. We don't have to publish them like we used to put it in newspapers.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. All
Anyone,
right, so next meeting you can expect to see them, but I mean, I'll send them to you before, as soon as I get them back.
are there any other any other reports, comments? Steve?
We adjourn.
Oh. Sorry, Melissa's a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Oh, wait, before you go. Meeting in March. Are you all right with a hybrid?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so those that are comfortable will be here. Those that still are waiting for vaccines or whatnot, we'll Zoom you in. If anyone. Last time we did this, everybody decided to come in, so. So anyway, so get your shovels ready for Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, man, here we go again.
Yeah, here we go again. All right, bye-bye.
All right, good night. Good night.
Like,